Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Wisdom in the Best Books and Films, where we find bite-sized nuggets of truth and use them to become better people. I am Jake Bear, your host, and this week I am going to read to you what is quite possibly my favorite excerpt from any King Arthur story. This is from The Sword and the Stone, which is the first part of The Once and Future King by T.H. White. In my opinion, The Sword and the Stone is by far the best of those three books that make up The Once and Future King. After King Arthur grows up and becomes king and stuff, I think that book is still pretty good, but The Sword and the Stone is absolutely excellent. I'm going to read to you guys an excerpt, which is, if you've seen the movie The Sword and the Stone, the old Disney movie from like the 40s or 50s, there's all these times where Merlin turns him into an animal. He gets a bird, a squirrel, a fish. Well, there's a time when he goes and visits a badger and is turned into a badger. So this is a part that is not in the movie, but it is in the book, and it is my favorite part of the book, probably. So I will be reading to you that excerpt. It is in chapter 21 of The Sword and the Stone. So if you want to go find it, I will include a link to a PDF of the public domain version of it. Since this is starting in the middle of the story, I will just tell you that Wart, which is what they call Arthur in this story at the beginning, is having a hard day, and Sir Ector basically gives him a glass of wine. They call it a glass of canary, and he says, go see Merlin and see if he can cheer you up a bit. So I'm starting... It's a little ways into chapter 21, a handful of paragraphs down where I'm starting. Hope you enjoy it. If you do, as usual, please leave a review and share it with friends and family and help us to get bigger. Here is chapter 21 of The Sword and the Stone by T.H. White. Sir Ector has given me a glass of canary, said the Wart, and sent me to see if you can't cheer me up. Sir Ector, said Merlin, is a wise man. Well, said the Wart, what about it? The best thing for being sad, replied Merlin, beginning to puff and blow, is to learn something. That is the only thing that never fails. You may grow old and trembling in your anatomies. You may lie awake at night, listening to the disorder of your veins. You may miss your only love. You may see the world about you devastated by evil lunatics, or know your honor trampled in the sewers of baser minds. There is only one thing for it then, to learn. Learn why the world wags, and what wags it. That is the only thing which the mind can never exhaust, never alienate, never be tortured by, never fear or distrust, and never dream of regretting. Learning is the thing for you. Look at what a lot of things there are to learn. Pure science, the only purity there is. You can learn astronomy in a lifetime, natural history in 3, literature in 6, and then after you have exhausted 1,000,000 lifetimes, in biology and medicine and theocriticism and geography and history and economics, why, you can start to make a cartwheel out of the appropriate wood, or spend 50 years learning to begin to learn to beat your adversary at fencing. After that, you can start again on mathematics, until it is time to learn to plow. Apart from all these things, said the Wart, what do you suggest for me just now? Let me see, said the magician, considering. We have had a short 6 years of this, and in that time I think I am right in saying that you have been many kinds of animal, vegetable, mineral, etc., many things in earth, air, fire, and water. I don't know much, said the Wart, about the animals in earth. Then you had better meet my friend the badger. I have never met a badger. Good, said Merlin, except for Archimedes. He is the most learned creature I know. You will like him. By the way, added the magician, stopping in the middle of his spell, there is one thing I ought to tell you. This is the last time I shall be able to turn you into anything. All the magic for that sort of thing has been used up, and this will be the end of your education. When Kay has been knighted, my labors will be over. You will have to go away, then, to be his squire in the wide world, and I shall go elsewhere. Do you think you have learned anything? I have learned, and been happy. That's right, then, said Merlin. Try to remember what you learned. He proceeded with the spell, pointed his wand of lignum vitae at the little bear, which had just begun to glow in the dimity as it hung by its tail from the North Star, and called out cheerfully, "Have a good time for the last visit. Give love to Badger." The call sounded from far away, and Wart found himself standing by the side of an ancient tumulus, like an enormous molehill, with a black hole in front of him. "Badger lives in there," he said to himself, "and I am supposed to go and talk to him. But I won't. It was bad enough never to be a knight, but now my own dear tutor that I found on the only quest I shall ever have is to be taken from me also, and there will be no more natural history. Very well, I will have one more night of joy before I am condemned, and, as I am a wild beast now, I will be a wild beast, and there it is." So he trundled off fiercely over the twilight snow, for it was winter. If you are feeling desperate, a badger is a good thing to be. A relation of the bears, otters, and weasels, you are the nearest thing to a bear now left in England, and your skin is so thick that it makes no difference who bites you. So far as your own bite is concerned, there is something about the formation of your jaw which makes it almost impossible to be dislocated. And so, however much the thing you are biting twists about, there is no reason why you should ever let go. Badgers are one of the few creatures which can munch up hedgehogs unconcernedly, just as they can munch up everything else from wasps' nests and roots to baby rabbits. It so happened that a sleeping hedgehog was the first thing which came in Wart's way. "Hedgepig," said the Wart, peering at his victim with blurred, short-sighted eyes, "I am going to munch you up." The hedgehog, which had hidden its bright little eye buttons and long sensitive nose inside its curl, and which had ornamented its spikes with a not very tasteful arrangement of dead leaves before going to bed for the winter in its grassy nest, woke up at this and squealed most lamentably. "The more you squeal," said the Wart, "the more I shall gnash. It makes my blood boil within me." "Ah, Meester Brock," cried the hedgehog, holding himself tight shut. "Good Meester Brock, show mercy to a poor urchin and don't be tyrannical. Us bean't no common tiggy, meester, for to be munched and mumbled. Have mercy, kind sir, on a armless, flea-bitten crofter, which can't tell his left hand nor his right." "Hedgepig," said Wart remorselessly, "forbear to whine, neither thrice nor once." "Alas, my poor wife and childer!" "I bet you have not got any. Come out of that, thou tramp. Prepare to meet thy doom." "Meester Brock," implored the unfortunate pig, "come now, don't ye be ochred. Sweet Meester Brock, my duck, hearken to an urchin's prayer, grant a dear boon of life to this most uncommon tiggy, lordy meester, and he shall sing to thee in the numbers sweet, and teach ye how to suck cow's milk in a pearly dew." "Sing?" asked Wart, taken aback. "I sing," cried the hedgehog, and it began hurriedly to sing in a very placating way, but rather muffled because it dared not uncurl. "Oh, Genevieve," it sang most mournfully into its stomach, "sweet Genevieve, their days may come, their days may go, but still the light of memory weaves those gentle dreams of long ago." It also sang, without pausing for a moment between the songs, "Home, Sweet Home," and "The Old Rustic Bridge by the Mill." Then, because it had finished its repertoire, it drew a hurried but quavering breath and began again on Genevieve. After that, it sang "Home, Sweet Home" and "The Old Rustic Bridge by the Mill." "Come," said the Wart, "you can stop that. I won't bite you." "Clementius, meester," whispered the hedgepig humbly, "us shall bless the saints and board of governors for thee and for thy most kindly chops, so long as fleas skip or urchins climb up chimblies." Then, for fear that its brief relapse into prose might have hardened the tyrant's heart, it launched out breathlessly into Genevieve for the third time. "Stop singing," said the Wart. "For heaven's sake, uncurl. I won't do you any harm. Come, you silly little urchin, tell me where you learned these songs." "Uncurl is one word," answered the porpentine tremblingly. It did not feel the least fretful at the moment, but curling up is still another. If ye was to see my little naked nose, meester, at this despicious moment, ye might feel a twitching in thy white toothsomes, and all's fear in love and war. That we do know. Let us sing to ye again. Sweet Meester Brock, concerning thick there rustic mill. I don't want to hear it any more. You sing it very well, but I don't want it again. Uncurl, you idiot, and tell me where you learned to sing. Us bean't no common urchin, quavered the poor creature, staying curled up as tight as ever. Us were a took when little by one of them there gentry like, as it might be from the mother's breast. And don't ye nippen our tender vitals, lovely Maester Brock, for he were a proper gentleman, he were, and brought us up full of comely on cow's milk, and that, all supped out from a lordly dish. And there bean't many urchins that drunken water out of porcelain, there bean't. I don't know what you're talking about, said the wart. He were a gentleman, cried the hedgehog desperately, like I tell ye. He tooken when us were little, and fed us when on ha'n't no more. He were a proper gentleman, and fed un inter parlour, like what no urchins ha'n't been afore nor since, fed out from a gentleman's porcelain, aye, and a dreary day it were whenever us left for a naught but for wilfulness, that thou mayest be sure. What was the name of this gentleman? He were a gentleman, he were. He had no proper name like, not like you may remember, but he were a gentleman, that he were, and fed un out of porcelain. Was he called Merlin? Asked the wart curiously. Ah, that were his name. A proper fine name it wore, but us never lay tongue to it by nary means. Ah, Mirn he called himself, and fed un out a porcelain like a proper fine gentleman. Oh, do uncurl, exclaimed the wart. I know the man who kept you, and I think I saw you yourself when you were a baby in cotton wool in his cottage. Come on, urchin, I am sorry I frightened you. We are friends here, and I want to see your little gray, wet, twitching nose, just for old time's sake. Twitching nose being one name, answered the hedgehog obstinately, and the twitching of that nose be another, meester. Now you move along, kind Maester Brock, and leave poor Crofter to tweak his winter drowse. Let you think of beetles or honey, sweet baron, and flights of angels singing to thy rest. Nonsense, exclaimed the wart. I won't do you any harm, because I knew you when you were little. Ah, them badgers, said the poor thing to its stomach. They go a-borrowing about with no harm in their hearts, Lord bless 'em, but don't they fair give you a nip without noticing of it? And Lord bless thee, what is a retired man to do? It's that there skin of theirs, that's what it be, which from earliest childer they've been a-nipping of among each other, and also of their mas, without a feeling of anything among themselves, so natural they nips elsewhere like the same. Now, my poor gentleman, Meester Mearn, they was allers a rushin arter his ankles, and they're ick, when they wanted to be fed like, those what he kept from littles, in Holy Church, how he would scream. Aye, 'tis a mollicky thing to do with they badgers, that us may be sure. Don't see nothing, added the hedgehog before Wart could protest. Blunder along like one of them ambling hearthrugs, on the outsides of their girt feet, getting their way for a moment just out of fortune like, with nary wicked intention, and 'tis snip-snap, just like that, out of self-defense for a hungry blind. And then where are you? Only police us can do for un, continued the urchin, is to it honor to nose. Achilles' heel they name un onter scriptures. Hit one and they girt trollops honor ter nose. Bim bam, like it at there. And the sharp life is fair outer him ere he can snuffle. 'Tis a fair knockout, that is. But how can a poor urchin dump un on ter nose, when he ain't goin' nothing to dump with, nor way to hold on? And then they comes about ye and asks ye for to uncurl. You need not uncurl, said the wart resignedly. I am sorry I woke you up, chap, and I am sorry I frightened you. I think you are a charming hedgehog, and meeting you has made me feel more cheerful again. You just go off to sleep like when you were when I met you, and I shall go look for my friend Badger, as I was told to do. Good night, urchin, and good luck in the snow. Good night it may be, muttered the pig grumpily, and then, again, it mayn't. First it's uncurl, then it's curl, one thing one moment, another thing the next. Hey-ho, 'tis a turvy world. But good night, ladies, is my motto. Come hail, come snow, and so us shall be continued in our next. With these words, the humble animal curled himself up still more snugly than before, gave several squeaky grunts, and was far away in dream world, so much deeper than our human dreams, as the whole winter's sleep is longer than the quiet of a single night. Well, thought the wart, he certainly gets over his troubles pretty quickly. Fancy going to sleep again as quick as that. I dare say he was never more than half awake all the time, and will think it was only a dream when he gets up properly in the spring. He watched the dirty little ball of leaves and grass and fleas for a moment, curled up tightly inside its hole, then grunted and moved off toward the badger's set, following his own oblong footmarks backward in the snow. "So, Merlin sent you to me," said the badger, "to finish your education. Well, I can teach you only 2 things, to dig and love your home. These are the true end of philosophy." "Would you show me your home?" "Certainly," said the badger, "though of course I don't use it all. It is a rambling old place, much too big for a single man. I suppose some parts of it may be 1,000 years old. There are about 4 families of us in it, here and there, take it by and large, from cellar to attics, and sometimes we don't meet for months. A crazy old place, I suppose it must seem to you, modern people, but there, it's cozy." He went ambling down the corridors of the enchanted set, rolling from leg to leg with the queer badger paddle, his white mask with its black stripes looking ghostly in the gloom. "It's along that passage," he said, "if you want to wash your hands." Badgers are not like foxes. They have a special midden where they put out their used bones and rubbish, proper earth closets, and bedrooms whose bedding they turn out frequently to keep it clean. The wart was charmed with what he saw. He admired the great hall most, for this was the central room of the tumulus. It was difficult to know whether to think of it as a college or as a castle, and the various suites and bolt holes radiated outward from it. It was a bit cobwebby, owing to being a sort of common room instead of being looked after by one particular family, but it was decidedly solemn. Badger called it the combination room. All round the paneled walls there were ancient paintings of departed badgers, famous in their day for scholarship or godliness, lit from above by shaded glowworms. There were stately chairs with the badger arms stamped in gold on their Spanish leather seats. The leather was coming off, and a portrait of the founder over the fireplace. The chairs were arranged in a semicircle around the fire, and there were mahogany fans with which everybody could shield their faces from the flames, and a kind of tilting board by means of which the decanters could be slid back from the bottom of the semicircle to the top. Some black gowns hung in the passage outside, and all was extremely ancient. "I am a bachelor at the moment," said the badger apologetically, when they got back to his own snug room with the flowered wallpaper, "so I'm afraid there is only 1 chair. You will have to sit on the bed. Make yourself at home, my dear, while I brew some punch, and tell me how things are going in the wide world." "Oh, they go on much the same. Merlin is well, and Kay is to be made a knight next week." "An interesting ceremony." "What enormous arms you have," remarked the wart, watching him stir the spirits with a spoon. "So have I, for that matter," and he looked down at his own bandy-legged muscles. He was mainly a tight chest holding together a pair of forearms, mighty as thighs. "It is to dig with," said the learned creature complacently. "Mole and I suppose you would have to dig pretty quick to match with us." "I met a hedgehog outside." "Did you know? They say nowadays that hedgehogs can carry swine fever and foot and mouth disease." "I thought he was rather nice." "They do have a sort of pathetic appeal," said the badger sadly, "but I'm afraid I generally just munch them up. There is something irresistible about pork crackling. The Egyptians," he added, and by this he meant the gypsies, "are fond of them for eating too. Mine would not uncurl. You should have pushed him into some water, and then he'd have shown you his poor legs quick enough. Come, the punch is ready. Sit down by the fire and take your ease." "It is nice to sit here with the snow and wind outside." "It is nice. Let us drink good luck to Kay and his knighthood." "Good luck to Kay, then." "Good luck." "Well," said the Badger, setting down his glass again with a sigh, "now what could have possessed Merlin to send you to me?" "He was talking about learning," said the Wart. "Ah, well, if it is learning you are after, you have come to the right shop. But don't you find it rather dull?" "Sometimes I do," said the Wart. "Sometimes I don't. On the whole, I can bear a good deal of learning if it is about natural history." "I am writing a treatise just now," said the Badger, coughing diffidently to show that he was absolutely set on explaining it. "Which is to point out why man has become the master of the animals. Perhaps you would like to hear it." "It is for my doctor's degree, you know," he added hastily before the Wart could protest. He got few chances of reading his treatises to anybody, so he could not bear to let the opportunity slip by. "Thank you very much," said the Wart. "It will be good for you, dear boy. It is just the thing to top off an education. Study birds and fish and animals, then finish off with man. How fortunate that you came. Now, where the devil did I put that manuscript?" The old gentleman scratched about with his great claws until he had turned up a dirty bundle of papers, one corner of which had been used for lighting something. Then he sat down in his leather armchair, which had a deep depression in the middle of it, put on his velvet smoking cap with the tassel, and produced a pair of tarantula spectacles, which he balanced on the end of his nose. "Ahem!" said the Badger. He immediately became paralyzed with shyness, and sat blushing at his papers, unable to begin. "Go on," said Wart. "It is not very good," he explained coyly. "It is just a rough draft, you know. I shall alter it a lot before I send it in." "I am sure it must be interesting." "Oh, no, it is not a bit interesting. It is just an odd thing I threw off in an odd half-hour just to pass the time, but still, this is how it begins." "Ahem!" said the Badger. Then he put on an impossibly high falsetto voice and began to read as fast as possible. "People often ask, as an idle question, whether the process of evolution began with the chicken or the egg. Was there an egg out of which the first chicken came, or did a chicken lay the first egg? I am in a position to say that the first thing created was the egg. When God had manufactured all the eggs out of which the fishes and the serpents and the birds and the mammals and even the duck-billed platypus would eventually emerge, he called the embryos before him and saw that they were good." Perhaps I ought to explain," added the Badger, lowering his papers nervously and looking at Wart over the top of them, "that all the embryos look very much the same. They are what you are before you are born, and whether you are going to be a tadpole or a peacock or a camel leopard or a man, when you are an embryo you look like a peculiarly repulsive and helpless human being. I continue as follows. The embryos stood in front of God, with their feeble hands clasped politely over their stomachs and their heavy heads hanging down respectfully. And God addressed them. He said, 'Now, you embryos, here you are, all looking exactly the same, and we are going to give you the choice of what you want to be. When you grow up, you will get bigger anyway, but we are pleased to grant you another gift as well. You may alter any parts of yourselves into anything which you think would be useful to you in later life. For instance, at the moment you cannot dig. Anybody who would like to turn his hands into a pair of spades or garden forks is allowed to do so. Or, to put it another way, at present you can only use your mouths for eating. Anybody who would like to use his mouth as an offensive weapon can change it by asking, and be a cork-and-drill or a saber-toothed tiger. Now then, step up and choose your tools, but remember that what you choose you will grow into, and will have to stick to.' All the embryos thought the matter over politely, and then, one by one, they stepped up before the eternal throne. They were allowed 2 or 3 specializations, so that some chose to use their arms as flying machines and their mouths as weapons, or crackers, or drillers, or spoons, while others selected to use their bodies as boats and their hands as oars. We Badgers thought very hard and decided to ask 3 boons. We wanted to change our skins for shields, our mouths for weapons, and our arms for garden forks. These boons were granted. Everybody specialized in one way or another, and some of us in very queer ones. For instance, one of the desert lizards decided to swap his whole body for a blotting paper. and one of the toads who lived in the drouthy antipodes decided simply to be a water bottle. The asking and granting took up 2 long days. They were the 5th and the 6th, so far as I remember. And at the very end of the 6th day, just before it was time to knock off for Sunday, they had got through all the little embryos except one. This embryo was man. "Well, our little man," said God, "you have waited till the last and slept on your decision, and we are sure you have been thinking hard all the time. What can we do for you?" "Please, God," said the embryo, "I think that you made me in the shape which I now have for reasons best known to yourselves, and that it would be rude to change. If I am to have my choice, I will stay as I am. I will not alter any of the parts which you gave me for other and doubtless inferior tools. I will stay a defenseless embryo all my life, doing my best to make myself a few feeble implements out of the wood, iron, and other materials which you have seen fit to put before me. If I want a boat, I will try to construct it out of trees. If I want to fly, I will put together a chariot to do it for me. Perhaps I have been very silly in refusing to take advantage of your kind offer, but I have done my very best to think it over carefully, and now hope that the feeble decision of this small innocent will find favor with yourselves." "Well done," exclaimed the Creator in delighted tones. "Here, all you embryos, come here with your beaks and whatnots to look upon our first man. He is the only one who has guessed our riddle. Out of all of you, we have great pleasure in conferring upon him the order of dominion over the fowls of the air, and the beasts of the earth, and the fishes of the sea. Now let the rest of you get along, and love and multiply, for it is time to knock off for the weekend. And as for you, man, you will be a naked tool all your life, though a user of tools. You will look like an embryo till they bury you, but all the others will be embryos before your might. Eternally undeveloped, you will always remain potential in our image, able to see some of our sorrows and to feel some of our joys. We are partly sorry for you, man, but partly hopeful. Run along, then, and do your best. And listen, man, before you go." "Well?" asked Adam, turning back from his dismissal. "We were only going to say," said God shyly, twisting their hands together. "Well, we were only going to say, God bless you." "It is a good story," said Wart doubtfully. "I like it better than Merlin's one about the rabbi, and it is interesting, too." The badger was covered with confusion. No, dear boy, you exaggerate. A minor parable at most. Besides, I fear it is a trifle optimistic." "How?" "Well, it is true that man has the order of dominion and is the mightiest of the animals, if you mean the most terrible one. But I have sometimes doubted lately whether he is the most blessed." "I don't think Sir Ector is very terrible." "All the same, if even Sir Ector was to go for a walk beside the river, not only would birds fly from him and beasts run away from him, but the very fish would dart to the other side. They don't do this for each other." "Well, man is the king of the animals." "Perhaps, or ought one to say the tyrant? And then again, we do have to admit that he has a quantity of vices." "King Pellinore has not got many." "He would go to war if King Uther declared one. Do you know that Homo sapiens is almost the only animal which wages war? Ants do." "Don't say ants do in that sweeping way, dear boy. There are more than 4,000 different sorts of them. From all those kinds, I can only think of 5 which are belligerent. There are the 5 ants, 1 termite that I know of, and man. But the packs of wolves from the forest sauvage attack our flocks of sheep every winter. Wolves and sheep belong to different species, my friend. True warfare is what happens between bands of the same species. Out of the hundreds of thousands of species, I can only think of 7 which are belligerent. Even man has a few varieties like Esquimaux and the gypsies and the Lapps and certain nomads in Arabia who do not do it. because they do not claim boundaries. True warfare is rarer in nature than cannibalism. Don't you think that is a little unfortunate?" "Personally," said the wart, "I should have liked to go to war. If I could have been made a knight, I should have liked the banners and the trumpets, the flashing armor and the glorious charges. And oh, I should have liked to do great deeds, and to be brave and conquer my own fears. Don't you have courage in warfare, Badger, and endurance, and comrades whom you love?" The learned animal thought for a long time, gazing into the fire. In the end, he seemed to change the subject. "Which do you like best?" he asked. "The ants or the wild geese?" That is the end of chapter 21 of The Sword and the Stone. I hope you enjoyed it. I personally love that creation story by the badger and the allegory of man choosing to be what God made him to be. I think it teaches us some wonderful things about humility and the importance of giving our will to God. But I hope you enjoyed it too, and if you did, I hope you will do me the favor of sharing this podcast with friends and family and anybody else that you think may be interested. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your month of January, and next week in February we will be continuing our King Arthur themed things with some more quotes from the Pendragon cycle. Have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.